I'm a beta, mid-30s, a single history professor. My omega nephew ran off before his wedding, and my family forced me to take his place. The night before the ceremony, I overheard my groom griping. Who wants to marry a beta 8 years older than me? We signed a deal. When my nephew returns, we divorce. 2 years later, he's back. I signed the papers, slipped off my ring, packed my bags, and left. But he's tearing the world apart looking for me. Chapter 1: The Deal. I adjusted my glasses and raised my hand to knock on the polished oak door of the Carter family's sprawling estate. Before my knuckles hit wood, a voice, sharp, young, and dripping with disdain, cut through. Who the hell wants to marry a beta 8 years older than me? Some old professor guy? I froze. My father and uncle, standing beside me, shifted awkwardly, their polished shoes scuffing the marble floor. The voice belonged to Fred Carter, my soon-to-be husband, 26, S plus alpha, and heir to a real estate empire. I smirked, unfazed, and pushed my glasses up. Charming! I muttered under my breath. My father shot me a nervous glance. Victor, don't take it personally. He's just young. I knocked. The door swung open, revealing Fred and his father, Dale Carter, mid-argument. Dale, a stocky alpha with graying temples, was mid-lecture. Your fiancé bolted, Fred. You're marrying Victor, like it or not. He's a professor, refined, not some flighty omega. Show some respect when you meet him. Fred's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. His eyes flicked to me, tall, lean, probably not what he expected from a beta old man. I offered a polite smile. Mr. Carter, Fred. Good to see you. Dale recovered first, smoothing his tie. Victor! Come in, come in. We exchanged pleasantries, the kind you choke down at forced family dinners. Dale gestured to his son. This is Fred. I'm sure you'll get along. I turned to Fred. He was a walking stereotype of alpha perfection, 6'3", tailored navy suit hugging a frame that screamed gym hours, dark hair tousled just enough, and a jawline that could cut glass. His hazel eyes sized me up, cold but curious. No wonder he wasn't thrilled about me. I extended my hand. Pleasure to meet you, Fred. He hesitated, then gripped my hand, firm, almost too firm. Yeah. You too. His voice was flat, like he was signing a contract he already regretted. The room buzzed with forced small talk. I kept my smile plastered on, playing the part of the agreeable fiancé. Fred barely spoke, his arms crossed, radiating irritation. I didn't care. This wasn't my idea either. Days later, we were married. The ceremony was a blur of white roses and champagne flutes, meant for my nephew Zach, the omega who ditched it all to chase his dreams. Our families had announced the union to the press, and canceling wasn't an option. So I stepped in, the only unmarried adult in the family. After the reception, Fred cornered me in the study of his downtown penthouse. The city skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows, but the room felt cold. He slapped 2 copies of a contract on the desk. Look, Victor, he said, leaning against the desk, arms crossed again. Let's be real. You're not my type. My dad says if Zach comes back, I can swap you out. Until then, we keep this simple. No feelings, no meddling in my life. Deal? I scanned the papers. Standard divorce agreement. If Zach returned, we'd split, and I'd get a hefty payout. I nodded, grabbing a pen. Works for me. I'm not here to play house. Fred raised an eyebrow, like he expected a fight. Good. You're smarter than you look. High praise, I said dryly, signing my name with a flourish. Your turn. He scrawled his signature, pressed his thumb to an ink pad, and stamped the page. Done. You keep this copy. He shoved one toward me and walked out without a backward glance. I folded the contract and tucked it into my jacket. This was a business deal, nothing more. I could handle that. 2 years later, I woke to the scratch of Fred's stubble against my cheek. His breath tickled my ear as he nuzzled closer, one hand sneaking under my pajama shirt. Rise and shine, Professor, he murmured, voice low and teasing. Breakfast's ready. I groaned, swatting his hand away. Stop it, you overgrown dog. I'm sleeping. He chuckled, undeterred, and pinned me under his weight, grinning like a kid caught stealing cookies. Sleep later. You promised to come watch the race today. Or do I need to drag you out of bed? I cracked one eye open. His face was inches from mine, hazel eyes glinting with mischief. This was not the Fred I'd met 2 years ago. That Fred was all sharp edges and cold glares. This one made me coffee every morning and hogged the blankets at night. I'm up, I grumbled, shoving him off. Don't get any ideas about dragging me anywhere. He smirked, rolling out of bed in nothing but boxers, his back muscles flexing as he stretched. Hurry up, or I'm eating your bacon. Touch my bacon, and you're sleeping on the couch. I shot back, tossing a pillow at him. He caught it and tossed it back, laughing as he headed to the kitchen. I dragged myself to the bathroom, splashing water on my face. The mirror showed a man who looked content. Too content. 2 years of living with Fred had blurred the lines. We weren't just roommates anymore. He cooked for me, I graded papers while he watched football, and somehow, we'd fallen into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to real. But I hadn't forgotten the contract. It sat in my desk drawer, a reminder that this, whatever this was, had an expiration date. At the kitchen island, Fred slid a plate of eggs and bacon my way. Eat fast. We're leaving in 20. I took a bite, eyeing him over my coffee mug. You're way too excited about cars going in circles. It's not just cars, it's art, he said, pointing a fork at me. You'll get it one day. Doubtful, I said, but I smiled. He grinned back, and for a moment, I let myself forget the deal. We headed to the racetrack, Fred's hand resting casually on my thigh as he drove. The track was a roar of engines and cheering crowds. We settled into the VIP section, Fred's eyes glued to the cars. I pulled out my phone, scrolling mindlessly, until a message from my cousin popped up. Found Zach. He's coming back today. My stomach dropped. I glanced at Fred, still cheering for his favorite team, oblivious. Zach was back. The deal was up. I typed back, fingers steady despite the knot in my chest. Where is he? My cousin's reply was quick. Some dive bar in the sticks. Was chasing his music dream, got scammed. Dad's dragging him home today. I exhaled slowly. 2 years, and it was over. Just like that. Fred turned, noticing my silence. You okay? Bathroom, I said, standing. I'll come with stay. I cut him off, forcing a smile. Enjoy your cars. He frowned but nodded, turning back to the race. I slipped away, finding a quiet corner to call my cousin. He's really back? Yeah, my cousin said. His family's pissed, keeping it quiet. Sorry, Vic. This whole thing screwed you over. It's fine, I said, my voice hollow. Thanks for the heads up. I hung up, staring at the track. The roar of engines felt distant. Zach was back. The contract loomed large in my mind, its terms crystal clear. I'd known this day would come. So why did it feel like a punch to the gut? Chapter 2, Crossing Lines. The racetrack's rumble faded as I leaned against a concrete pillar, the text from my cousin still burning in my mind. Zach was back. The deal Fred and I signed 2 years ago was about to kick me out of his life. I shoved my phone into my pocket and headed back to the VIP seats, my steps heavier than before. Fred was still glued to the race, his fingers laced with mine like it was second nature. You missed the best part, he said, not looking away from the track. Red team's killing it. Tragic, I said, forcing a smirk. I'll survive. He glanced at me, eyebrows raised. You're snarkier than usual. What's up? Just tired, I lied, pulling my hand free to check my phone again. No new messages. Good. I needed time to process this. Fred nudged my shoulder. Tired, huh? Guess I kept you up too late last night. I rolled my eyes. Don't flatter yourself. My thesis drafts are the real culprits. He grinned, leaning closer. Sure, blame the books. Not my fault you can't resist me. Resist you? I snorted. You're the one who can't keep your hands to yourself. Guilty, he said, winking. Eat your popcorn, Professor. Race is almost over. I popped a kernel in my mouth, tasting nothing. My mind drifted back to 1.5 years ago, when this, whatever this was, started. It was Fred's grandfather's 70th birthday, a big bash at their family's countryside estate. I'd gone as his +1, still keeping my distance, our marriage nothing more than a signature on paper. Fred, of course, had other ideas. He downed half a bottle of whiskey, his alpha instincts kicking into overdrive during his susceptibility period. I tried to leave the guest room, but he'd blocked the door, eyes dark and hazy. Victor, he'd slurred, crowding me against the wall. You smell good. I'm a beta, I'd said, pushing at his chest. I don't smell like anything. You're drunk. Not that drunk. He'd growled, and before I could argue, he'd kissed me. Hard. I'd fought it for about 10 seconds before my brain short-circuited. 2 days later, I could barely walk. When he sobered up, he didn't apologize. Just grinned, sprawled on the bed, and said, "Didn't expect that to be so good." I'd glared at him, wrapping a sheet around myself. This was a one-time thing. An accident. Sure, he'd said, smirking. Accident. It wasn't. Fred didn't let up after that. He'd show up at my university office with coffee, linger in our shared apartment, and find any excuse to touch me, brushing my arm, tucking hair behind my ear. I told him to back off. He didn't. And God help me, I didn't try that hard to stop him. You're not my type, I'd reminded him once, echoing his words from our first meeting. We were tangled in bed, his arm heavy across my waist. He'd laughed, nipping my ear. Types are overrated. This works, doesn't it? Works? I'd scoffed. You just want a warm body. Nah, he'd said, pulling me closer. I want you. I hadn't believed him. Still didn't. But it was hard to argue when he was kissing my neck, making my resolve crumble. So, I let it happen. We became something. Bed partners, maybe? Friends, almost. He started cooking for me, simple stuff like pasta or steak, bragging about learning it abroad. I'd roll my eyes but eat every bite. He'd drag me to sports bars. I'd drag him to history lectures. We fit somehow. Back at the racetrack, the final lap ended with a roar. Fred whooped, pulling me to my feet. Come on, let's grab lunch. You're looking pale. I'm fine, I said, brushing him off. My stomach churned, but not from hunger. Zach's return was a ticking clock. We drove to a diner, one of those retro places with red booths and greasy fries. Fred ordered a burger. I picked at a salad. He noticed. You're not eating. What's wrong? Nothing, I said, spearing a tomato. Just not hungry. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Bullshit. You've been weird since the track. Spill it. I met his gaze, steadying myself. You ever think about kids? He blinked, caught off guard. Kids? Sure, someday. Why? I shrugged, keeping it casual. Just curious. Alphas usually want heirs, right? Omegas make that easy. He frowned, leaning back. What's this about? You're not an omega. So what? So nothing, I said, smiling tightly. Just thinking out loud. He didn't buy it, but he let it go, stealing a fry from my plate. You think too much, Professor. Eat your damn salad. I laughed despite myself, but the question lingered. Fred was young, powerful, the kind of alpha expected to carry on a family name. A beta like me couldn't give him that. Not easily, anyway. After lunch, we headed home. Fred flopped on the couch, pulling me down with him. Movie night? I've got papers to grade, I said, trying to stand. He tugged me back, wrapping an arm around my waist. Papers can wait, he murmured, lips brushing my ear. I can't. I swatted his chest. You're insatiable. You love it, he teased, kissing my jaw. I did. That was the problem. I let him pull me closer, my resolve weakening as his hands roamed. But Zach's return gnawed at me. The contract was clear, he was back, so I was out. I'd known this day would come, but knowing didn't make it easier. Later, in bed, Fred's arm draped over me, his breathing steady as he slept. I stared at the ceiling, the weight of the contract heavier than his arm. I'd let myself get too comfortable. Stupid. This wasn't my life to keep. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message from my cousin. Zach's home. Family's keeping it quiet, but he's back for good. I set the phone down, my chest tight. Tomorrow, I'd start planning. I'd sign the papers, pack my things, and walk away. Like I'd promised. Like Fred had wanted. But as his hand tightened around me in his sleep, I wondered if he still did. Chapter 3: Mirrors and Doubts. The racetrack's cheers faded as I slipped away from the VIP seats, Fred's hand no longer anchoring mine. My cousin's message about Zach's return buzzed in my head like a persistent fly. I needed air, space to think. The concrete walkway stretched past food stands and roaring crowds, but I veered toward a quieter corner near the restrooms. Voices caught my ear, low, tense, and raw. I waited 3 years, Leo, a man said, his voice cracking. You said you didn't care about kids? I slowed, glancing around the corner. 2 guys stood in the shadow of a vendor cart. The taller one, Leo, wore a racing suit, his alpha build unmistakable. The other, Sam, a beta by his lean frame, had red-rimmed eyes and trembling shoulders. I meant it then, Leo said, rubbing his neck. But my family's breathing down my neck. They want an heir. You can't, I can't? Sam snapped, voice breaking. You think I haven't tried? You think I don't know I'm failing you? I shouldn't have lingered, but my feet wouldn't move. Their fight was a mirror, reflecting every fear I'd buried about Fred and me. Leo shifted, looking guilty but resolute. Sam, I love you, but what? Sam's voice dropped to a whisper. I'm just a beta. Not good enough. Before Leo could respond, a new voice cut in, sharp and high. Leo! There you are! An Omega, petite and polished, jogged up, latching onto Leo's arm. He glared at Sam. Why are you still here? We're engaged. Back off. Sam's face crumpled, like he'd been slapped. Engaged? Leo looked away, jaw tight. The Omega smirked, pressing closer to Leo. Yeah, engaged. Our families met last week. A beta like you can't give him what I can. Stop embarrassing yourself. Sam staggered back, hand over his mouth, and bolted. Leo didn't follow. The Omega cooed. Don't let him guilt-trip you, babe. Leo mumbled something and let her lead him away. I stood frozen, my pulse hammering. Sam and Leo were us, Fred and me, down to the bitter end. A beta and an alpha, doomed by biology and expectations. Zach was back, the Omega Fred was supposed to marry. I was just a placeholder, the old beta he never wanted. I took a shaky breath, adjusting my glasses. Get it together, Victor. I'd known this was coming. I headed back to the VIP seats, pasting on a neutral expression. Fred was on his feet, cheering as his team crossed the finish line. We won! He shouted, grabbing my arm. Told you they'd pull it off. Great, I said, managing a smile. You called it. He squinted at me, picking up on my mood. You sure you're okay? You look like you saw a ghost. Just tired, I said, dodging his gaze. Can we skip the museum today? I'm not feeling it. His brow furrowed, but he nodded. Fine. Let's grab dinner instead. That little place you like with the fancy soups? Sure, I said, my voice flat. He didn't push, just slung an arm around my shoulders as we left the track. The diner was cozy, tucked in a quiet part of town. Dim lights, wooden tables, the smell of herbs and fresh bread. The owner, a pregnant Omega named Eli, greeted us with a warm smile, his apron stretched over a small baby bump. Victor! Fred! Been a while. Hey, Eli, I said, forcing cheer. You look ready to pop. He laughed, patting his stomach. Third kid, no big deal. You guys enjoy. As he walked away, I stared at his retreating figure. Omegas made it look so easy, pregnancy, family, everything alphas like Fred were supposed to want. I pushed my soup around, appetite gone. Fred noticed, of course. You're not eating again. What's with you today? I shrugged, poking at a carrot. Just thinking. Omegas have it easy, huh? Popping out kids like it's nothing. He leaned back, smirking. Jealous? Want me to put in some extra effort tonight? I snorted, despite myself. Keep dreaming, Carter. I'm a beta, remember? Low odds. Odds schmods, he said, stealing a sip of my soup. We're having fun, aren't we? Kids or no kids. I raised an eyebrow. Fun? Is that what we're calling this? He grinned, leaning closer. Call it whatever you want, Professor. You're stuck with me. His words hit harder than he meant. Stuck with him, until Zach took my place. I forced a laugh, changing the subject. Eat your damn burger before it gets cold. He chuckled but kept watching me, like he knew something was off. I avoided his eyes, focusing on my bowl. Fun wasn't enough. Not when his family, his world, expected an Omega. A real heir. That night, back at his apartment, Fred was all hands, tugging me toward the bedroom with that lazy grin of his. Come on, Vic. Let's make up for your bad mood. I hesitated, then let him pull me close. His kisses were warm, familiar, and for once, I didn't hold back. I matched his intensity, my hands roaming his back, memorizing every line of him. If this was the last time, I wanted to remember it. Damn, he murmured against my lips, pulling back to catch his breath. What's gotten into you? Not that I'm complaining. I smirked, tugging his shirt off. Shut up and keep up. He laughed, diving back in, and for a few hours I forgot about Zach, the contract, and the inevitable end. But as we lay tangled in the sheets, his arm heavy across my chest, reality crept back. This wasn't mine to keep. Tomorrow, I'd start planning my exit. I'd sign the papers, pack my bags, and walk away before Fred could replace me with the Omega he was meant for. I stared at the ceiling, his steady breathing filling the silence. My chest ached, but I pushed it down. I'd survive this. I always did. Chapter 4: Signing and Leaving. Morning light slipped through the blinds, casting stripes across the hardwood floor. I lay awake, Fred's arm still slung over me, his breath warm against my neck. Last night's intensity lingered in my muscles, but my mind was elsewhere. Zach was back. The contract I'd signed 2 years ago was calling my name, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. Today, I'd end this. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Fred. He stirred, mumbling something incoherent, but didn't open his eyes. Good. I needed space to do this. In the study, I pulled the contract from my desk drawer, its edges worn from years of sitting untouched. Fred's signature stared back at me, bold and unapologetic, next to his thumbprint in faded red ink. My chest tightened, but I shook it off. Sentimentality wouldn't help. By noon, Fred was out meeting a client, some golf game with business partners. I'd faked a headache to stay behind, and now the apartment was too quiet. I called a moving company, voice steady as I gave instructions. Just the essentials. Books, clothes, laptop. I'll handle the rest later. The movers arrived within the hour, efficient and impersonal. They packed my life into boxes while I stood by, arms crossed, feeling like a stranger in my own home. Fred's home, really. I'd just been borrowing it. I sat at the desk, pen in hand, and signed my name next to Fred's. The ink bled slightly, a small imperfection on a document that would unravel 2 years of my life. I pressed my thumb to the ink pad, sealing the deal. The wedding ring on my finger caught the light, a simple platinum band I'd worn out of habit. I slid it off, placing it on the contract like a final punctuation mark. Done. My phone buzzed. A text from Fred: dinner at home or out? Your call, Professor. I stared at the screen, his casual tone twisting the knife in my gut. He didn't know yet. I typed back, fingers cold, eat with your friends. Don't rush back. His reply was instant. What's that mean? You okay? I didn't answer. Instead, I swapped my SIM card for a new one, cutting the thread. The movers finished, and I followed them out, my suitcase in hand. The city blurred past as I drove, heading for a small town a few hours away. I'd planned this weeks ago, a research trip to study old settlements, perfect for clearing my head. My university colleague, Dale, a beta with a knack for logistics, had agreed to join me. He'd already lined up a local guide. I reached the town by dusk, checking into a no-frills motel with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign. Dale met me in the lobby, his easy grin a small comfort. You look like shit, Vic, he said, clapping my shoulder. Rough day? Something like that, I said, forcing a smile. Where's this guide you keep raving about? Right here. A new voice, warm and confident, cut in. I turned to see Jake, a young alpha with a tan and a disarming smile, extending a hand. Victor, right? I'm your guy for the backroads. Ready to see some old ruins? I shook his hand, his grip firm but friendly. Hope you're as good as Dale says. Better, Jake said, winking. I know every trail in this county. Dale laughed. Careful, Vic. Jake's got a reputation for charming his clients. Jake grinned, mock offended. I'm a professional, thank you. I save the charm for special cases. His eyes lingered on me a beat too long, and I raised an eyebrow. Keep it professional, then, I said, half joking. Jake chuckled, unfazed, and I felt a flicker of unease. He was friendly, sure, but I wasn't here for that. We grabbed dinner at a nearby diner, the kind with sticky menus and overcooked fries. Jake regaled us with stories of local history, his enthusiasm almost infectious. Dale nudged me under the table. Told you he's good. Yeah, I said, sipping my coffee. It tasted like burnt regret, but I drank it anyway. My stomach churned, not from the food but from the weight of what I'd done. I'd walked away from Fred, from 2 years of something that felt real, even if it was built on a lie. My phone rang, the new number already shared with family. It was my dad. I stepped outside, the evening air cool against my skin. Victor, he said, voice tight. What's going on? Fred's blowing up my phone, saying you're gone. He's freaking out. I leaned against the diner's brick wall, rubbing my temple. He'll get over it. Zach's back, Dad. We had a deal. A deal? What are you talking about? I sighed. Just tell Fred to check the study. He'll understand. Victor, talk to him yourself. He sounds like he's losing it. I'm tired, I said, cutting him off. I'll call you later. I hung up, switching my phone to silent. Fred's reaction didn't make sense. He'd wanted this, hadn't he? A clean break, back to his Omega dream. I was just the stand-in, the beta who'd never measure up. Back inside, Jake was showing Dale a map on his phone, plotting our route. Tomorrow's village is a trek, he said, glancing at me. You up for it, Victor? I'll manage, I said, forcing a nod. Not my first hike. He's tougher than he looks, Dale said, grinning. Just don't let him get lost in his books. Jake laughed. Noted. I'll keep an eye on him. His tone was light, but his gaze was too warm, too attentive. I ignored it, focusing on my coffee. I'd come here to escape, to bury myself in work and forget Fred's touch, his laugh, the way he made me feel like I belong. But as Jake's eyes lingered and Dale chatted away, I realized running might not be enough. Fred's absence was a hole I couldn't fill, not with ruins or research or friendly strangers. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. Tomorrow, I'd throw myself into the trip. Tonight, I just had to survive the ache. Chapter 5: Clash in the Village. Dust clung to my boots as I trudged through the narrow path, the ancient village ahead barely visible through the morning mist. Dale walked beside me, rattling off facts about the settlement's history, while Jake led the way, his alpha frame cutting through the underbrush. I should have been thrilled. Crumbling stone walls and forgotten artifacts were my thing, but my head spun, and my stomach churned. I chalked it up to stress. Leaving Fred, signing that contract, it was all catching up to me. You good, Vic? Dale asked, eyeing me. You're paler than my grandma's china. Fine, I said, adjusting my glasses. Just didn't sleep well. Jake glanced back, his grin easy. Rough night? Motel beds are the worst. Something like that, I muttered, ignoring the concern in his eyes. He'd been overly attentive since we met, and I wasn't in the mood to parse his intentions. We reached the village, a scatter of weathered stone houses nestled against a hillside. I pulled out my camera, snapping photos of cracked lintels and faded carvings. Work was a distraction, a lifeline. I could lose myself in history and forget the ache of Fred's absence. My phone stayed silent, no signal out here. Good. I didn't want to hear from Fred, not after I'd left the contract and my ring behind. But my body wasn't cooperating. Nausea hit me mid-shot, and I leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Jake was at my side in an instant. Whoa, you okay? You look like you're about to keel over. Just need a second, I said, waving him off. Probably dehydrated. He handed me his water bottle, his hand brushing mine. Drink. And sit down before you faceplant. I took the bottle, avoiding his gaze. Thanks, but I'm not fragile. Never said you were, he said, smirking. Just don't want my star client passing out. Dale snorted from a few feet away. Star client? You're laying it on thick, Jake. Professional charm. Jake shot back, winking at me. I rolled my eyes but managed a small smile. Their banter was a welcome distraction. That distraction shattered when a familiar voice boomed across the village. Victor! I spun around, heart lurching. Fred stood at the path's edge, hair a mess, eyes bloodshot, stubble darkening his jaw. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. My stomach dropped. How the hell did he find me? Dale froze, and Jake's posture stiffened, his alpha instincts kicking in. I stepped forward, forcing calm. Fred. What are you doing here? He stormed closer, ignoring everyone else. What am I doing? You ran off without a word. I've been losing my mind trying to find you. I crossed my arms, keeping my voice steady. I left the contract signed. Zach's back. We're done, like we agreed. Done? His voice cracked, anger and hurt mixing. You think I give a shit about that paper? That was 2 years ago. It's what you wanted, I said, meeting his gaze. You said it yourself, Beta, too old, not your type. He flinched, then grabbed my shoulders, eyes blazing. I was an idiot back then. You think I'd chase you across the state for a contract? I opened my mouth, but no words came. His intensity threw me off. Before I could respond, he tugged me toward the path. We're going home. Now. I yanked free. I'm not going anywhere. We're over, Fred. He stepped closer, towering over me. Like hell we are. Everything okay here? Jake cut in, stepping between us, his tone sharp but calm. Victor, you need me to handle this? Fred's eyes narrowed, sizing Jake up. Who's this guy? Local guide, I said quickly, sensing the tension spiking. He's just doing his job. Job, huh? Fred's voice was low, dangerous. Looks like he's doing more than that. Jake raised his hands, smirking. Relax, man. I'm just making sure my client's okay. Client? Fred snapped. He's my husband. Ex-husband. I corrected, my voice colder than I meant. Fred's face fell, but his jaw tightened. Dale, ever the peacemaker, jumped in. Okay, let's all chill. Victor, maybe talk this out inside? I nodded, leading Fred to the motel, my head pounding. Inside my room, he slammed the door, the lock clicking shut. Jake's voice came through, muffled. Vic, I told him you and I are just friends. Tell him to cool it. Fred's gaze locked onto me, predatory. Friends, huh? That guy's way too cozy with you. He's a guide, I said, pouring water from a pitcher to steady myself. You're overreacting. Am I? He stepped closer, voice low. You leave me, ditch your phone, and now you're out here with some alpha sniffing around. What am I supposed to think? I set the glass down, hard. You're supposed to think about Zach. He's back. That was the deal. Screw the deal, he roared, grabbing my shoulders again. I don't want Zach. I want you. I laughed bitterly, shaking him off. You're a Carter. Your family needs an Omega, an heir. I can't give you that. I don't care. His voice cracked, raw. I don't need kids. I need you. I wanted to believe him, but Sam and Leo's fight at the racetrack flashed in my mind. Promises didn't outlast reality. You say that now, I said quietly. But people change. He opened his mouth, but a knock interrupted. Dale's voice. Vic, we're heading to the next site. You coming? Fred answered for me, yanking the door open. He's staying. Tell your guy to back off. I sighed, rubbing my temple. Fred, stop. I'll finish the trip with them. No way, he said, crossing his arms. I'm coming with you. I stared at him, exasperated. You hate history. I don't hate you, he said, softer now, his eyes pleading. Let me stay, Vic. Please. My resolve wavered. He looked wrecked, desperate, nothing like the cocky alpha I'd met 2 years ago. Against my better judgment, I nodded. Fine. But behave. He grinned, relief flooding his face. Deal. No promises, though. I rolled my eyes, grabbing my bag. You're impossible. And you love it? He teased, following me out. As we rejoined Dale and Jake, the air crackled with tension. Jake's easy smile faltered when he saw Fred, and Fred's arms slid around my waist, a clear claim. I shoved him off, muttering, Don't start a war out here. He chuckled, unrepentant. No war. Just keeping what's mine. I glared, but my heart wasn't in it. Fred's presence was a storm I couldn't escape, and part of me didn't want to. Chapter 6. Into the Dust. Chaos erupted in a heartbeat. The ground trembled, a low rumble growing into a roar as rocks and dirt cascaded down the hillside. I froze, my camera slipping from my hands as Jake shouted, Run! Dale grabbed my arm, but Fred was faster, scooping me up and sprinting away from the collapsing slope. Dust choked the air, stinging my eyes, as the world turned to noise and panic. We'd been exploring a remote village, its abandoned stone structures half reclaimed by vines. I'd been fighting nausea all morning, blaming it on stress and lack of sleep. Fred had noticed, of course, hovering like a worried guard dog. "You're pale again," he'd said, handing me water. "Sit this one out, Vic." "I'm fine," I'd snapped, brushing him off. Now, as the earth itself betrayed us, I regretted not listening. Fred stumbled, his grip tightening as he shielded me from falling debris. "Stay close," he yelled, voice barely audible over the landslide's roar. Dale and Jake were ahead, shouting for us to hurry. A sharp crack split the air, and Fred threw himself over me, shoving us both to the ground. Pain shot through my knees as we hit, his body a heavy shield against the chaos. The rumbling stopped, leaving an eerie silence. Dust settled, coating us in grit. I coughed, pushing against Fred's chest. "Get off, you're crushing me." He didn't move. I shoved harder, panic rising. "Fred?" His weight slumped, and I twisted to see his face, eyes closed, blood trickling from his temple. A jagged rock lay beside him, half buried in the dirt. My heart stopped. "Fred!" Dale and Jake ran back, their faces pale. "What happened?" Dale asked, dropping to his knees. "He's out," I said, voice shaking as I checked his pulse. "Weak, but there." "Help me!" Jake started digging, tossing rocks aside. I clawed at the debris pinning Fred's legs, my fingers scraping raw. Come on, I muttered, tears blurring my vision. He couldn't be gone. Not now. We freed him, dragging him to a patch of grass. His chest wasn't moving. Jake pressed an ear to Fred's heart, his face grim. "No pulse. He's not breathing." The world tilted. I shoved Jake aside, my hands shaking as I started chest compressions. "Don't you dare!" I growled, pressing hard on Fred's sternum. "You don't get to leave me!" Dale fumbled with his phone, cursing the spotty signal. Jake knelt beside me, ready to help, but I didn't stop. Compress, breathe." I pinched Fred's nose, blowing air into his lungs, my own breath ragged. "Come back, damn it!" Minutes stretched into eternity. My arms burned, but I kept going, refusing to lose him. Finally, Fred coughed, his chest heaving as he gasped for air. Relief hit me like a tidal wave, and I slumped back, hands trembling. "He's okay," Jake said, clapping my shoulder. "You did it, Victor." I nodded, barely hearing him, my eyes locked on Fred's face. He blinked, dazed, blood still oozing from his head. I wiped it with my sleeve, my voice hoarse. "Don't scare me like that again." Before he could answer, a wave of dizziness hit me. The world spun, and I collapsed, darkness swallowing me whole. I woke to the beep of a hospital monitor, my arm tethered to an 4. Sunlight streamed through a window, painting the white walls gold. Fred sat beside me, his head bandaged, one hand clutching mine. He looked like hell, bruised, exhausted, but alive. "You're awake," he said, relief flooding his voice. He leaned closer, brushing hair from my forehead. "Took you long enough." I swallowed, my throat dry. "You okay?" "Few scratches, cracked skull," he said, grinning faintly. "Alpha perks, I heal fast. You, though." His hand slid to my stomach, his expression softening. "You've been keeping secrets." I frowned, confused. "What?" "You're pregnant," he said, his grin widening. 5 weeks. Doc saw it on the ultrasound. Our kid's a tough one, hanging in there after all that. I stared, my brain refusing to process. "Pregnant? Me? I'm a beta. Low odds, not zero," he said, kissing my knuckles. "Guess I'm just that good." I laughed, then winced as my head throbbed. "You're ridiculous. And you're stuck with me," he said, his tone turning serious. "No more running, Vic. I mean it." I looked away, the memory of the landslide crashing back. Fred, bleeding and still, shielding me from the rocks. He'd risked everything for me. No contract, no Omega, could change that. "I thought I lost you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "When you stopped breathing, I'm right here," he said, squeezing my hand. "And I'm not going anywhere. Neither are you." I met his eyes, the weight of my doubts crumbling. I'd spent years bracing for the end, convinced a beta like me couldn't hold an alpha like him. But he'd chased me, fought for me, nearly died for me. And now, against all odds, I was carrying his child. Okay, I said, my voice thick. No more running. His face lit up, and he leaned in, kissing me softly. Good. 'Cause I'd chase you to the ends of the earth, Professor. I swatted his arm, laughing through the tears. Sap. You're gonna milk this hero thing, aren't you? Damn right, he said, smirking. Saved your life, got you pregnant. I'm basically a legend. Keep dreaming, I said, but I pulled him closer, resting my forehead against his. The hospital room faded, the beeping monitors a distant hum. For the first time, I let myself believe this could last, not just the passion, but the quiet moments, the fights, the life we build. Even if it faded to something ordinary, I'd take it. With Fred, I'd take anything. As sunlight warmed the room, I held his hand tighter, ready for whatever came next.